Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing your favorite dark romances. Alright guys, so dark romance is one of my favorite genres, so I asked over on my Instagram for you guys to tell me what your absolute favorite dark romance book is, and you did not disappoint. I got so many responses and I am so excited to share them with you guys. So I actually did this with fantasy romance, and a lot of the books you guys picked I had never heard of before, and I've actually read a few 5-star reads from that list, so I'm so excited to talk about these dark romance books. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these dark romance books. Alright, so before I get into all the dark romance recommendations, I just want to say, check trigger warnings. Some of these books I have not read yet, so I can't give you the appropriate triggers, but they are available on Goodreads and normally inside the book. And I'm just going to say this now as like a blanket statement for all the books, or else I would be saying check trigger warnings about 50 times throughout this video. So anyway, that is your one warning. Definitely check out the trigger warnings and make sure it's a book that you're comfortable with reading before going in. Starting off with one of the most popular dark romance books around, and this was actually the #1 recommendation on that Instagram story that I posted, and it's also the first dark romance that I ever read. So we have Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. This is the first book in the cat and mouse duet. If you're unfamiliar with what this story is about, it is something. So we are following Addie, and she moves into her grandmother's house who has recently passed away. Now this house is kind of creepy, kind of dilapidated, and she soon becomes stalked by this vigilante stalker, and it is Addie and the stalker Zaid's love story. And it is dark, and it is twisty, and they have a very interesting relationship dynamic. However, I loved this book. I read this book. I remember I started this book at 10 o'clock at night, and I would not go to sleep until I finished it. I think it was like 3 a.m., and I finished it and was like, what did I just read? It is super dark, and once again, their romance is unlike any other romance I've really read. However, it is thoroughly addicting. Now, I will say I loved this first book. Second book, super dark, and I think it was McKay from Oh Hey It's McKay that said that the reason the second book probably feels so dark is because this first book makes you very invested in Addie. You really fall in love with her, and then the second book, she just goes through it, and you've already built up that connection to her. So it's a hard read, know that go again. However, this first book I absolutely loved and highly recommend if you are a fan of dark romance. And next up is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. So I really want to go back and reread this book. I tried reading this when it first came out. However, I ended up softy NFing just because it was a little too dark for me at the time. However, I've read a lot of dark romance since then. I feel like I might actually enjoy the story a lot more now. But this story is following Cora and Dean. So Dean is engaged to Cora's sister. However, Cora and Dean have known each other most of their lives, and they just do not get along. They're always bickering, and they're just not great friends, which is unfortunate because when Cora forgets her wallet at a bar, the only person that's able to pick her up is Dean. So when Dean comes to pick up Cora, they both get attacked and are then taken prisoner by a serial killer. So it is pretty much the story of them being held captive by the serial killer and also the bond that forms while they are being held captive. And this book is very upsetting. It is very dark, like all the other books on this list. However, Jennifer Hartmann is just an amazing author. I loved every other book I've read by her. So I will definitely be giving Still Beating another shot. And next up is Losers by Harley Laroux. This is the first book in a duet that has been on my radar for forever. However, when I was researching this video, I realized that the audiobook for this finally came out in June, so I will definitely be reading this in July, or at least the first book in July. My TBR is kind of insane. But anyway, this story is apparently following a girl that's very popular in high school, and then she does something to get a loser kicked out, and then they all grow up, she graduates college, and then she meets the losers group when they are adults and they want revenge. And then it turns into some sort of like poly romance. It sounds really good. I've had a lot of friends that have read it and really enjoyed it. Now, I will say that plot synopsis sounds very, very similar to Devil's Night. I think that's the name of the series, the first book being Corrupt. So I'm not exactly sure how similar it's going to be, but I am very excited to pick up this duet. And next up is Take Me With You by Nina C. Jones. Recently, I've been having a lot of people recommend I pick this book up. So I believe this is another serial killer romance. We're following this serial killer who is very type A, very regimented, and he normally finds these girls and just immediately kills them. However, he begins stalking this one girl, and to everybody else, she has a very idealistic life. However, she keeps having dreams of being taken away. So eventually, when this serial killer confronts this girl, he ends up taking her with him, which is very against his MO. And I believe it is their love story. So it sounds like something I will absolutely love. It also sounds like something, if you're a fan of Haunting Adeline, you will probably really enjoy. And next up, we have The Ritual, and this is by Shantel Tessier. So I actually read this book physically, which is very, very rare. However, I believe the audiobook for this actually recently released. Now, this is very interesting. This is kind of like secret society. So we're following this guy that is going to college, and we find out he's in a secret society in his college to essentially become a hitman. So throughout the years, he is celibate and he's just killing all of these people. And then finally, when his senior year comes, for all of the people that have advanced to this point, they are essentially given like a sex, SLAVE, that it's kind of like their gift for completing the program. And we are following our main character and the girl that is given to him by this secret society. And the story goes from there. It is very dark, a lot of like a BDSM, kind of non-con. Check all the trigger warnings. I know I said I wasn't going to say that again in this video, but like I have to. It's dark. So just know that going in. However, if you want like secret society and new adult, these characters are a little bit younger, you might really enjoy this. And next up is The Enslaved Duet by Giana Darling. So this is a bind-up of both books, and also no one actually recommended this in my Instagram story. However, it's one of my favorite dark romances. So the story is following Cosma, and she's this beautiful 18-year-old girl that ends up being sold to a British lord to pay off her father's gambling debts, and it is her story as she like slowly falls in love with her captor. And it is dark. So dark, just to give you an idea, the headline of this says, "To save my family, I have only one item of value to sell, my body." So just know that going in, check those trigger warnings. But I love Cosma as a character. She is so strong and she's just absolutely amazing to follow. So highly recommend if you really love a dark captor romance. Another really popular recommendation was Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. Now, this is the perfect dark romance to read this time of year. It has that ocean setting. It's also a historical romance, my absolute favorite historical romance. So if you're unfamiliar with the plot of Sea of Ruin, we are following Bennett. Bennett is the daughter of a very revered pirate and a lady of society. Now, Bennett is being raised by her mother, who wants her to become a proper young lady. However, Bennett kind of has other plans. She really idolizes her father and absolutely loves him. And then when she is left an orphan, she decides to pick up her father's mantle and becomes a pirate herself. Now, at the start of our story, Bennett is fleeing, and we find out she is actually fleeing from her husband, who is another pirate named Priest. And while running away from her husband, she ends up being taken captive by the pirate hunter Ashley, and the story goes from there. This book is addictive and super dark, and the action never stops, and it is just one of my absolute favorite Pam Godwin books. So highly recommend if you want a dark romance that take place on the sea and just has absolutely amazing characters. I highly recommend picking up Sea of Ruin. And next up is Her Soul to Take by Harley Laroux. So this is a dark paranormal romance, and I actually read this back in October, and I loved it. I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. So besides the fact that it is super creepy, the imagery in this is just, I was not expecting it to be so scary, but it's also really, really fun. So the story is following Ray and Leon. Ray is essentially Velma from Scooby-Doo, except she's a ghost hunter and she's on her own. So she ends up moving back to her hometown, and when she gets there, she meets Leon, who is a demon. However, she doesn't realize he's a demon. She just thinks he's a very attractive security guard, that it's also kind of scary. And then Leon realizes that Ray is actually the person that the cult that summoned him want him to kill. So Leon and Ray end up teaming up to try to go against this cult, and it is their romance, and it is so much fun. Like I said, I absolutely loved this book and will definitely be continuing with the series. And next up is the Royal Elite series by Rina Kent. So the first book is Deviant King, but a lot of people just said Royal Elite series in general. So I have not picked up this series yet, but what I know is that it is a high school bully romance. Now, personally for me, I don't love high school romances. I always feel like you can just age up those characters and it'd essentially be the exact same book, just with more mature characters. But I know a lot of people that have read this series and absolutely love it. And it was also one of the top books that was recommended. So if you are a fan of bully romance, definitely pick up the Royal Elite series. And next up is Devil of Dublin by B.B. Easton. So this was one of my favorite reads last year, and I highly recommend, if you have not read it yet, definitely pick it up. We are following Darby, and at the beginning of the story, Darby is this young girl, and she travels with her mother to Ireland to visit her grandfather. Now, Darby's grandfather kind of fills her head with all of these whimsical, magical stories of Ireland and the Fae folk, and one day when Darby is out exploring, she runs into this boy. Now, this boy is essentially feral, he doesn't talk, his hair is really long, he hasn't bathed in a while, and Darby and this boy, Kellen, eventually become very good friends. So every time that Darby visits Ireland, she visits Kellen, and they have this very beautiful friendship. Now, something happens, and Darby doesn't visit Ireland for a decent amount of time, and she believes that Kellen has passed away. Now, she is about to marry another person, and she goes to visit Ireland for her grandfather's passing, and she is thrown into the life of Kellen once again, and the story goes from there. I loved this mafia romance. Like I said, it is completely unique. It has a very fantastical, whimsical feel, but it's still a mafia romance. So highly recommend, definitely pick up Devil of Dublin. Next up is The Royals of Forsyth University, and this was a very popular response. And I had never heard of this series, but then when I looked into it, I realized the first book is actually Lords of Pain, which I have owned an audio version of and a physical copy of for over a year now, and still have not picked it up, despite putting it out on multiple TBRs, and knowing it is a book I will probably really enjoy. So it is a why choose dark romance set in a collegiate setting, and that is all I really know. What I didn't realize is apparently this series is 9 books long. However, I think it's done in threes. So the first 3 books are about one set of people, and then so on and so forth, second grouping, third grouping. But I had no idea there was that many books in that series. So that is good to know. But anyway, a lot of people recommended books in this series. So apparently it's really good, and I cannot wait to pick it up. And this next book sounds so good. It is Marrow by Trisha Wolfe. So this story is a dark romantic suspense, and we are following Jack, who is a forensic anthropologist, and he's also a serial killer. So he's very type A, he loves to be in control, so he's not expecting Kyrie to come into his life. Now, Kyrie is also a well-respected scientist, and is also a murderer. So I believe these two end up teaming up, despite the fact they hate each other, in order to save Kyrie. I'm not exactly sure if there's another serial killer that's gonna get thrown in there, but it sounds really fun, really dark, and I will definitely be picking it up. And this next book is a dark captor-captive romance, and it's called Betrayal. I had never heard of this book before, so I just looked it up on Goodreads, and I'm actually going to look up or read the Goodreads blurb, which is something I hate doing on my channel. However, I don't think I can summarize it better than this blurb, which says, "Her, I witnessed something I was never meant to see. He took me. He broke me. He made me his. And now he wants to use me to bring down my family. Him, I was never meant to save her. The daughter of the scum who stole my life. I took her, I broke her, I made her mine. And now she'll do anything I say." So I'm gonna read that. Now I'm definitely gonna read that. I'm gonna probably download the audio as soon as I'm done filming this. And it sounds really, really good. Next up is Deliver by Pam Godwin. And actually, I'm pretty sure this is the first book in an 8 or 9 book series I have been meaning to get to. However, I've had a lot of friends tell me that it is very dark, so I'm kind of waiting for when I'm in the right mindset to pick it up. But I believe the first book, we are following this girl that is kind of in the human trafficking trade, and she steals these men and then trains them to eventually be sold. So like I said, very dark. I know that every one of the books in the Deliver series are standalones, but they do have to be read in order, and they are technically romances, so they all have HEAs. But yeah, I've heard amazing things, but I've also heard super, super dark. So I will hopefully be reading at least the first few books in the Deliver series this year. Next up is Hawk by Jessie Hall, or at least I hope it is. So 4 of you guys said Hawk, but no one actually put the title, and there's multiple books with Hawk as the title. So after reading the synopsis, I'm pretty sure this is the one you guys were talking about, or at least I hope so. If not, let me know down in the comments below. But this is a dark romance, and we're following this girl that's been in a long-term relationship with her boyfriend, and she's very neat and organized, and then an ex-convict ends up moving in with them, whose last name is Hawk, and then she starts kind of looking into his past, and things go from there. So it sounds really good. I'm definitely intrigued. Kind of seems like it has a romantic suspense vibe, and I will definitely be checking that out at some point in the summer. So the next book is Hitched by Lauren Beale. So I first heard of this book on TikTok. One of the TikToks I follow, I forget her TikTok handle. It's Maddie something. I'll leave her down in the description below. She's absolutely amazing. I love all of her dark romance recommendations. So if you follow people on TikTok, definitely check her out. but she was talking about this book and was just saying how dark it is. And I know if she's saying it's dark, it's probably like past my tolerance level of dark. And then I think it was Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl was also talking about this book. So this is following a guy who I believe is like running from the police or the law. He ends up stealing this girl, and I'm pretty sure he's using her to try to like get over state lines or essentially escape the police. And then it is their relationship, and apparently past trauma is brought up, and it's just unbelievably dark. I will eventually read this book. Will it be soon? Probably not. I feel like I need to mentally prepare before I pick it up, but I definitely do plan on picking this book up at some point in the future. And last up is Master of Salt and Bones by Carrie Lake. So I read this years ago and I was expecting a fantasy romance. So I ended up rating this very low. However, I want to go back and do a reread because I think now I would probably love this. I remember it being very dark, very creepy, very atmospheric. So we're following this girl who ends up taking a job working for this guy that is completely scarred. He's known as the devil to like everyone in his community, and he just lives in this like isolated gothic mansion. So anyway, she decides she ends up working for him, and they eventually have this romance, and we get to kind of find out what led him to live the life he currently lives, and it was interesting and very, very creepy. So yeah, like I said, I will definitely be going back and doing a reread of this, hopefully over the summer, just to see how I feel. All right, guys, that is it for your favorite dark romances. Please let me know down in the comments below if there is a dark romance that I didn't mention that you absolutely love. I love getting recommendations from you guys. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!